"You're evicting us?" Amanda's voice cracked. "Your own son?" Nora didn't blink. She just set the teacup down. "You gave me a mop. I'm giving you 30 days. Outside, a sheriff's car idled at the curb. Amanda lunged for her phone. Too late. The deed was signed, the house no longer theirs. "Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe." She smiled sweetly as I tore the paper. I wish she'd just slapped me instead. The room was lit in warm yellow and sugar-sweet expectations. A banner reading, "Happy 66th Nora," sagged slightly at the corners above the fireplace, taped up with more effort than affection. The dining table was polished and dressed with store-bought cupcakes and half-melted candles. Nora sat at the head, her hands folded neatly on her lap, a soft cardigan hugging her shoulders, the scent of her lavender lotion barely clinging to her skin over the scent of roasted chicken. She'd made the chicken, and the mashed potatoes, and the gravy, from scratch. Mark, her son, raised a glass of boxed wine, grinning like the moment was more about him hosting than her existing. "To Mom, the hardest working woman I know." Everyone clapped, even Amanda's mother, whose perfume warred with the cinnamon candle flickering on the table. Then Amanda reached under the table, retrieved a wrapped box the size of a shoebox, and set it in front of Nora with both hands and a tight smile. "We thought this would be perfect for you," Amanda chirped. Nora blinked, lips parting slightly. The wrapping was thin, wrinkled, a rush job with tissue paper reused from someone else's birthday. She slowly peeled it away. The handle came into view first, then the label. A yellow mop, plastic, cheap, the kind you find in gas station clearance bins. Amanda giggled behind a manicured hand. "You're always so neat. We thought it'd suit you. You love cleaning." The laughter hit her ears like glass breaking. Nora looked down at the mop, then up at Mark, whose face was caught somewhere between discomfort and complicity. He offered a weak chuckle and added, "It's kind of an inside joke." Nora didn't smile, not when Amanda's mother laughed and said, "She's lucky to live with you two. My mother's in a care home." Not when Amanda added, "And she insists on mopping even when we tell her not to. Total clean freak." Nora placed the mop back in the box, her hands trembling just enough to notice. The room buzzed with laughter and wine-sweet voices, but her pulse roared louder. In that moment, she didn't see the mop. She saw the hours she'd spent on their laundry, the months of her pension spent on groceries, the years she'd silently shared their mortgage after her husband died. She remembered last week, when Amanda had asked her to clean the bathroom, "When you get a minute." She remembered when Mark promised she'd always have a place to live, as long as you don't become a burden. She remembered what it felt like to be valued, and she remembered when that stopped. The room tilted slightly as she stood up. Her chair scraped the floor, too loud in the sudden hush that fell. "Mom?" Mark said, half standing. "Hey, it's just a joke." But she didn't look at him. Didn't look at Amanda. Didn't look at anyone. She walked out of the dining room with the quiet grace of someone who had once been loved, had once been young, had once been seen, and now understood she was none of those things to the people in that room. She didn't slam the door. She didn't raise her voice. She just left the mop behind, still half exposed in its torn paper on the dinner table. In the hallway, she paused to collect her coat from the hook. Her hands were steady now, steadier than they'd been in years. As she reached into her coat pocket for her keys, her fingertips brushed something she'd forgotten was there, an envelope, unopened, faintly yellowed at the edges. The return address, stamped in neat serif font, Law Offices of Carter and Maddox. Her heart gave a small, unfamiliar flutter. She stepped out into the cool evening air, leaving behind the clink of forks and the echo of laughter that no longer included her. The porch light flickered as if struggling to decide whether she still belonged beneath it. The letter felt heavier now in her palm than the entire birthday dinner. She turned toward the driveway. Not toward her room. Not tonight. Just as she reached the edge of the lawn, the wind picked up, curling around her coat and catching her hair, as if the night itself had exhaled. And for the first time in months, so did Nora. She slid into her car, turned the dome light on, and opened the envelope with slow fingers. Her lips parted as she read the first line. Then she whispered to the dark windshield, voice calm and clear, "They have no idea what's coming. The food I cooked, the home I paid for, none of it made me family anymore." The smell of rosemary chicken drifted through the air, rich and warm, laced with steam rising from the stove. Nora stirred the sauce slowly, deliberately, her eyes fixed not on the pan but on the window above the sink, where dusk had begun to paint the sky in shades of melancholy violet. The kitchen used to be hers, the nerve center of her home. Now it felt like a borrowed apron. Her movements were silent, practiced, like background music no one noticed. "Does she ever leave the kitchen?" Amanda's voice drifted in from the hallway. "It's like living with a live-in maid. Permanent maid with benefits, I guess." Nora froze. The wooden spoon in her hand stopped mid-stir, dripping sauce onto the stovetop with a soft splat. "I'm serious," Amanda whispered through her phone, voice muffled but venom clear. "She just hovers. Like, she's always here, always cleaning. It's like she thinks she still owns the place." A beat of silence. Then soft laughter from the other end. "She's harmless," Amanda added with a syrupy tone. "But seriously? We need to look into assisted living. This isn't sustainable." The conversation continued, fading as Amanda walked deeper into the house, but the words had already carved themselves into Nora's chest like rusted nails. Her hands trembled as she turned off the stove burner. The sauce sizzled down to silence. She leaned on the counter and stared at the worn floor tile beneath her slippers, the same tiles she'd scrubbed on her knees the day Mark brought Amanda home for the first time. They'd eaten at this table. They'd toasted with champagne she'd paid for. They'd celebrated the closing of this house, the dream home she had quietly helped fund after her husband's funeral. Flashback. Mark, head bowed in grief, holding Nora's hand at the bank. "Mom, I just need help with the down payment. Just until Amanda gets promoted. I'll put your name on the documents, don't worry." She remembered her fingers trembling as she handed over the check, her life savings, the emergency fund her late husband had left in her trust. And now? Now, Amanda was talking about moving her into a facility like she was a cast-iron skillet that had outlived its shine. That night, dinner was quieter than usual. Mark pushed his rice around his plate. Amanda scrolled through her phone between bites. "Mom," Mark said without looking up. "Hey, Amanda was thinking maybe we could try some new meal options." Nora looked at him. He didn't meet her eyes. "I mean," he continued, "you don't have to cook so much. You're retired. Amanda read this article about how lighter eating helps digestion after 60. Amanda chimed in with a smile too sweet to be sincere. "It's all about balance, and honestly you do so much already." Nora's hands remained folded in her lap. She didn't argue, didn't flinch. She just stared at the mismatched placemats and the single burned-out bulb above the dining table. Do so much? Number she'd done everything, and they didn't even notice. After dinner, when the dishes were cleared and Amanda retired upstairs with a clay face mask and a phone call, Nora returned to her room, the smallest in the house next to the laundry, and opened her nightstand drawer. It had been buried under old checkbooks and expired prescriptions. But it was there. An envelope, cream-colored, heavy, the top corner embossed with gold letters. Wilcox and Wilcox, LLP. The same law firm that once handled her husband's estate. She held it in her lap, just staring. Her reflection, dim and tired, stared back at her from the dark window pane. She hadn't opened this envelope in years. She wasn't even sure why she'd kept it. But tonight, it felt like it had been waiting for her. Her fingers hovered over the flap. She didn't tear it open. Not yet. Instead, she exhaled slowly, the breath shaky but steadying. "They think I'm old. Powerless. In the way." She slid the envelope into her handbag. Tomorrow she would remember who she was. Nora picked up her phone and opened the contacts list. Her thumb hovered, then tapped on a name she hadn't seen in years. Wilcox and Wilcox, Estate Division. Her voice barely above a whisper as the line rang. "Hi, I think it's time we talked." Buried under years of bills and broken pride was a fortune I never touched. The edges of the envelope had yellowed with time, curled slightly like something that had been waiting too long in silence. Nora sat at the foot of her twin bed, legs stiff, staring down at the thing like it might breathe if she blinked too long. The logo still gleamed faintly in the lamplight. Wilcox & Wilcox LLP. Elegant, old money lettering. It was the kind of envelope you didn't throw away, even if you forgot why you kept it. Nora slid a thin nail beneath the flap. The paper inside crackled like firewood. It was thick, ivory-colored. She unfolded it with the care of a woman unwrapping memory, not ink. The words swam for a moment in her eyes, then settled sharply into view. As per the enclosed terms of the late Ms. Geraldine Huxley's private estate, you, Ms. Nora Catherine Bell, are listed as sole beneficiary to the Huxley Trust, file number 8491-B, held in escrow by our firm since April 2012. Her breath snagged. Geraldine. The name hit like warm honey poured over an old bruise. Flashback. A dim hospital room, the soft beep of machines, and a woman with a crown of white curls gripping Nora's hand. "You're the only person who ever made me feel like I wasn't dying," Geraldine had whispered through dry, cracked lips. "When the world forgets you, Nora, I won't." Nora had kissed her forehead that night, thinking it was goodbye. It hadn't been. It was a promise she never expected anyone to keep. She reread the letter 3 times. 4. A trust. Her name. Unclaimed. She stared blankly at the wall for a full minute, the silence louder than ever before. $5.8 million. The number wasn't on the letter, but the second sheet, clipped underneath, confirmed the trust's current valuation. It was dated last year. Untouched. Unclaimed. The folder slipped from her lap and hit the floor with a soft thump. Nora didn't move. Her hands stayed frozen in midair, like they couldn't quite accept what her brain was whispering. "You are not broke. You never were." The next morning she wore her best church coat, the one with the stitched neckline and loose buttons, and took a bus into the city. She didn't want Mark or Amanda asking questions about the car. Not yet. The law firm stood inside a tall glass building downtown. She could smell expensive paper and quiet money the moment she stepped through the doors. A young assistant, clipboard, heels too high, greeted her with polite surprise. "Ms. Bell? We weren't sure you'd ever come in." "I wasn't either," Nora murmured. They led her into a walnut-paneled office where a balding man with tired eyes and a kind voice introduced himself as Mr. Devereaux. He offered her tea. She declined. Her voice cracked. She started again. "Is this real?" He smiled and slid the folder across the desk. "Very real. Ms. Bell, Ms. Huxley was adamant this be left untouched until you claimed it. She called you her family. Not like family, just family." Nora blinked hard. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. Mr. Devereaux leaned forward. "With your signature, we'll finalize the account. The assets will be yours immediately." "Immediately?" "Yes. Though." He flipped through the pages, something suddenly catching his eye. "Actually, one detail may require attention." Nora tensed. "What kind of detail?" He looked at her carefully. "You may want to come back in tomorrow. Some of the financial filings mention a property connection." Her stomach dropped. "What kind of property?" He pulled a sheet from the back and held it up. "Looks like the trust had a co-signed lien on a home purchased in 2013. Someone used your identity. That name's not yours, though. It's Amanda Bell." Nora sat back. A cold, sharp chill moved through her spine. "Amanda." Mr. Devereaux folded his hands. "Ms. Bell, I don't say this often, but you should come back tomorrow, in person. There's more here than money." Nora nodded once, slowly, her voice steady now. "Then I'll be back. And this time I want everything with my name on it." They laughed at me like I was stuck. I'd just started walking. Nora had never stepped on carpet that soft. It whispered beneath her shoes as if asking, "Are you sure you belong here?" The law firm's receptionist had already smiled, offered coffee, and said, "They've been expecting you." Not in the way Amanda's shrill voice expected her to mop the kitchen. Not in the way Mark forgot to even say thank you. This was different. This was power with porcelain cups. Mr. Devereaux greeted her at the glass door with the same warmth he'd shown yesterday, but today there was reverence in it, a quiet understanding. "The paperwork is ready," he said, gesturing toward the conference table, "and your account is prepared for immediate transfer once signatures are finalized." Nora's fingers didn't tremble this time. Pen in hand, she signed her name, twice, then again. With each swoop of ink, it felt like she was peeling back layers of dust and disrespect that had gathered over her like mold. Devereaux turned the last page, pressed a button on his keyboard, and said, "Congratulations, Ms. Bell." A soft chime came from her phone. She opened her banking app, then stared. $5,846,132.04. For a moment, the world shrank to just that number. She forgot how to blink. "I'd recommend you speak to a financial advisor and we can refer—" "I will," Nora interrupted, her voice firmer than she expected. "Tomorrow." That night, she didn't go back home. She walked straight into the lobby of the Farnsby, a luxury boutique hotel she used to pass on her way to clean offices downtown. It had always seemed like a mirage, tucked behind gold-trimmed windows and marble columns. "I'd like a room, just for one night," she told the concierge. "Of course. Will you be needing the executive suite or—" "Yes," Nora said. "The executive." When she entered the room, her knees nearly buckled, white linens like clouds, a private balcony, a bottle of water that cost more than her weekly groceries. She took off her shoes and sat on the edge of the bed. No sound, no slamming cupboards, no passive-aggressive sighs from Amanda, just silence. Beautiful velvet silence. She didn't cry. She grinned. The next morning, wrapped in a robe softer than anything she owned, Nora sipped black coffee on the balcony while the sun crept up over the skyline. Below, the city roared, horns, construction, traffic. But up here, she could finally hear herself think. She pulled out her tablet and began her next task, planning the exit. She started simple: set up a financial firewall, contact Devereaux for power of attorney housing filings, move half to a high-yield investment account. Do not tell Mark or Amanda, not yet. Her eyes flicked to the corner of the screen. An alert from her email. Subject line: refinance application, pending final signature. Her heart dropped. She opened it. There it was, in plain text. Amanda Bell is seeking to refinance property ID number 8723 for a $118,000 kitchen remodel. The attached document included an authorization for cosigner confirmation. Nora scrolled and saw her own name. The document was dated last week and unsigned. She nearly laughed. Amanda was about to dig a financial grave with paperwork that still required permission from someone she thought was just the help. Not anymore. Nora clicked the download button. Then she picked up the hotel phone and dialed the front desk. "I'll need the room for one more night," she said. "And could you send someone up to help with a courier request? I have a legal envelope that needs same-day delivery." As she sealed the envelope with slow precision, Nora whispered, "Let's see how funny she finds this kitchen upgrade." And somewhere across town, Amanda was already bragging to a friend about the marble counters she hadn't earned and the house that never really belonged to her. "They made me mop its floors. They never checked whose name was still on the deed." Nora sat at the old oak desk tucked in the corner of her hotel suite, the same desk where, months ago, she'd scribbled shopping lists and Christmas card messages. Now it was buried under files, yellowing documents, folded bank statements, and envelopes addressed to Ms. Nora Bell in handwriting that no longer existed. Her hands moved with surgical precision, her eyes, calm but unblinking, a rustle of paper, a breath held. Then, there it was, the original deed, dated, notarized, and stamped in navy blue ink, her name printed beside Mark's in bold font, joint owner, Nora Bell. She stared at it for a full minute, chest rising slowly, lips parting like she wanted to laugh, but couldn't quite decide if it was funny or tragic. They thought she was a guest. She never left. They just stopped looking at her. 10 years ago, after Nora's husband passed, the house had almost slipped through their fingers. Mark was drowning in credit card debt. Amanda's Etsy business had folded. They'd pleaded, begged, offering smiles layered in desperation. "Just help us co-sign, Mom, until we stabilize," Mark had said. And she had. She'd even dipped into her husband's pension to cover the first 2 years of the mortgage when Mark was between jobs. Now, Amanda walked across the same floor Nora once scrubbed with baking soda and vinegar, calling it her open-concept masterpiece. Nora leaned back in her chair and let the ceiling fan hum lull her rage. She called a new lawyer the next morning. His name was Victor Drenner, and he worked out of a sharp little office downtown that smelled like leather and strategy. "I want to know my options," she said without preamble, sliding the papers across his glass desk. He flipped through them silently, eyebrows rising at the co-signature and untouched clauses. "Well, Ms. Bell," he said slowly, "technically, you never removed yourself from the title, and if they never filed the joint ownership revision, you still legally own 50% of that property, maybe more depending on the financing." Nora tapped the table gently. "Amanda used my name to secure the original loan, didn't she?" "Looks that way, but she can't prove you authorized it. And even if she could, it's a gray zone at best." Nora folded her hands. "I want the house back." Victor didn't flinch. He smiled. "Let's get started." That afternoon she returned to the house. Not to speak, not to confront, just to observe. She stood outside for 10 quiet minutes, watching through the kitchen window as Amanda hovered over granite counters, a wine glass in hand. Mark sat nearby, scrolling his phone like a ghost on autopilot. Nora didn't knock. She turned and walked to her car, the original deed tucked in her coat pocket like a holy relic. 2 days later, Victor emailed her a scanned document for review, intent to reclaim partial ownership. She signed it digitally, heart steady. It was a strange kind of peace, not the quiet kind, the kind that knows exactly what storm it's about to become. That evening, Nora stopped by the coffee shop near Amanda's favorite salon, not to spy, but to pick up a chamomile tea. She didn't expect to hear Amanda behind her. "I told her I want quartz counters," Amanda was saying into her phone. "Not that cheap laminate. As soon as the old woman's finally gone, this place is going full Pinterest." Pause. Laughter. "I'm gonna gut the kitchen, open up the whole damn wall, and maybe knock down that awful laundry nook she insisted on keeping. I swear it still smells like lemon bleach and senior discounts." Nora didn't turn around. She just smiled quietly, paid for her tea, and left without being noticed. That night, Nora emailed Victor a voice memo. Amanda's entire phone conversation, recorded clearly through the cafe's ambient buzz. "Attach this to the intent notice," she said. "Let's make it formal." And for the first time in years, Nora slept like the house was already hers again. They thought I was invisible. I was the shadow behind their mortgage. Amanda was sipping her protein shake, scrolling Pinterest for kitchen backsplash ideas, when Nora walked past the breakfast bar in silence. No apron, no dish towel, no morning chatter. Just Nora, in her slippers, carrying only a quiet smile and a mug of black coffee. Amanda blinked. "No toast today?" Nora didn't answer. She took her seat in the sunroom, the one Amanda used to call the shrine to the old lady's doilies, and sipped slowly, her eyes fixed on the garden. The silence spread like steam off a kettle. Subtle, persistent, impossible to ignore. 3 days earlier, Nora had stood in the back office of a boutique firm nestled between a yoga studio and an artisanal candle shop. Victor, her lawyer, introduced her to Marlene, a real estate specialist with sharp cheekbones and a sharper mind. "You want to reclaim the house without them realizing it's you?" she asked. Nora nodded. "Exactly, quietly, legally. No screaming matches, no drama." Marlene smirked. "Then we'll set up a shell LLC, transfer your share of the house into that company's name. You'll be the only beneficiary." "And the name of the company?" Victor asked. Nora thought a moment, then smiled. "Second Wind Holdings." By the end of the week, the paperwork was filed. From that point on, Nora did not lift a single pan. She didn't fold towels, didn't touch the vacuum, didn't water a single plant. Every task she used to perform like a ghost, silent, expected, unnoticed, was left untouched. At first, Amanda thought Nora might be sick. By day 3, she started getting irritable. "This trash didn't walk itself out," Amanda muttered loud enough at dinner, side-eyeing Nora. "Not that anyone cares about keeping the place decent anymore." Mark cleared his throat but kept his eyes on his phone. Nora passed him the salt. Said nothing. On Sunday, Amanda returned from brunch with a bouquet of hydrangeas and an edge in her voice. She dropped her purse on the counter and pointed at the kitchen. "Seriously, Nora, are you just not helping anymore?" Nora looked up from her book. Her voice was soft. "I wasn't asked to," Amanda scoffed. "This house doesn't clean itself, you know." Nora tilted her head, closed her book slowly. "Does it not?" The tension sat between them like static electricity, charged, invisible, dangerous to touch. Amanda stormed off, muttering under her breath, something about entitled freeloaders. Nora didn't flinch. She simply returned to her reading. That night, in the silence of her room, Nora opened her laptop. She reviewed the LLC ownership transfer once more. Her name, clear and permanent, was the only name attached to Second Wind Holdings, and Second Wind Holdings, as of Thursday, owned 51% of the home. A new draft was also in progress, the notice of rent adjustment, but she wasn't delivering that yet. Not until Amanda finished hanging herself with her own words. The next morning, Amanda printed something from her laptop. The sound of the paper feed was aggressive, like her mood. She stomped down the hallway, slid the paper under Nora's door, and tapped twice before walking away. Nora waited, let silence soak through the crack. Then she picked up the paper. Weekly cleaning schedule. Effective. Immediately, Nora's name was scrawled across every task. Bathrooms, floors, fridge, patio, laundry. At the bottom, in Amanda's sharp handwriting, "Let me know if you have questions. Or if you'd like to renegotiate your stay here." Nora folded the paper once. Neatly. Carefully. She walked it back to her desk, clipped it to her growing evidence folder, and whispered under her breath, "Renegotiate it is. You want a maid? Hire one. I just bought the agency." The cleaning schedule sat on the kitchen corkboard, fluttering slightly each time the air conditioning kicked in, its ink bold, underlined, and absolutely ignored. Nora walked past it every morning, coffee in hand, bathrobe tied neatly around her waist, humming Billie Holiday like she had no weight left in her bones. She stopped offering to wash dishes. She didn't fold laundry, didn't ask if they wanted tea in the evenings, and she never once mentioned the laminated list tacked to the wall with Amanda's aggressive neatness, because silence, when deliberate, makes people nervous. And Nora? She had learned to wield silence like a weapon. By Friday, Amanda was boiling. "Unbelievable," she hissed, yanking open the fridge and slamming it shut again. "Not even a note to say she's not cooking anymore?" Mark looked up from his tablet. "Maybe she's just tired?" Amanda whipped around. "Oh, now she's tired? After living rent-free for 6 years?" "Technically," he started, but the rest of the sentence never made it out. Nora walked into the kitchen then, wearing tailored black slacks, a soft silk blouse, and a pair of pearl earrings Amanda didn't remember seeing before. Her hair was pinned, her lips faintly pink. She didn't look tired. She looked expensive. "Going somewhere?" Amanda asked, venom laced in the question. Nora smiled faintly. "Weekend getaway." Mark blinked. "With who?" "Silence," she replied, smoothing her blouse. "It's the only company I'm craving." The front door closed with a softness that made Amanda's rage feel louder by contrast. "She's doing this on purpose," she snapped, pacing. "This passive-aggressive nonsense. She's trying to guilt us." Mark scratched the back of his neck. "Maybe she's just reclaiming space?" Amanda narrowed her eyes. This is rebellion, and I won't be manipulated in my own home." She stormed toward the cleaning schedule and ripped it off the corkboard, slicing her finger slightly on the edge. If she wants war, she'll get war. Meanwhile, Nora sat poolside at the Avalon Resort, a luxury boutique hotel draped in ivy and whispers. A flute of champagne shimmered on the glass table beside her. She'd booked the penthouse suite, not out of vanity, but to remind herself that she could. She flipped through a real estate portfolio from her lawyer's assistant, Marlene. The numbers looked good. The lien was scheduled to process by Monday. The LLC she created, Second Wind Holdings, had already submitted the claim. "Are you sure you want to stay anonymous?" Marlene had asked over the phone earlier. "Oh, I'm not hiding," Nora had answered, eyes locked on the sun's reflection dancing over the pool. "I'm just letting their imaginations do the heavy lifting." Back at home, the kitchen faucet dripped steadily, echoing off the granite like a ticking clock. Amanda was furiously typing on her laptop, searching refinancing options, frustrated by blocked credit reports and halted access. Then she saw it. A notification on her mortgage account. New line alert. Party filing. Second Wind Holdings, LLC. Her breath caught in her throat. The screen blurred as her eyes widened. "What the hell is Second Wind Holdings?" Mark looked up from the couch, remote in hand. "What's going on?" She turned to him slowly, her voice lower than a whisper. "Someone placed a lien on our house." Mark frowned. "What does that mean?" Amanda didn't answer. She just kept staring at the screen, the blood draining from her face. Nora's cleaning schedule still sat in the trash can, untouched. Like everything else Amanda assumed she controlled. Amanda stood frozen at the kitchen counter. She clicked details on the lien notification. Her eyes scanned the listed contact address, and there, in small, tidy font, was the return name, M. Harland, Attorney at Law Estate Law, Trusts, Quiet Claims, Senior Property Advocacy. Amanda's voice cracked when she whispered, "She's lawyered up." The mop was cheap. The eviction will be expensive. Amanda's phone buzzed once. She didn't check it. She was too busy pacing the kitchen tiles, barefoot, hair undone, the clock ticking past midnight. Mark sat at the dining table, silent, watching her with a growing sense of unease. Then the buzz came again. And again. She snatched it up, opened the email, her breath hitched. Subject, foreclosure proceedings initiated, action required. Outside, the street was still. A few porch lights flickered down the block. Inside, the silence was broken only by the sharp sound of Amanda's nails tapping her phone screen and the distant hum of the refrigerator. "Number no, she muttered. Mark stood. "What is it now?" She shoved the phone toward him, eyes wide. "They've filed. Whoever that LLC is, they've officially triggered foreclosure." He blinked, confused. "That can't be right. We've paid the mortgage." "No, Mark. The lien. It changes everything. They're calling the debt forward. And unless we pay it off in 10 days, the house goes into court control." A beat of silence. "How much?" he asked, throat dry. "Almost 60 grand, she whispered. Across town, in a quiet boutique cafe, Nora stirred honey into her tea with the kind of precision only someone with nothing left to rush could afford. Her phone sat face down beside her, its screen having flashed a simple notification just minutes earlier: foreclosure in process. Ownership temporarily reassigned to estate claimant, Nora M. Lawson. She didn't smile, she didn't gloat, she simply sipped. The next morning, Nora returned home wearing beige slacks and a soft lilac blouse. Her hair was pulled back, skin glowing from 3 days of peace and spa steam. She carried a small brown paper bag. Inside it, a lemon scone and a note from her favorite bakery. Amanda was in the kitchen, dark circles under her eyes, clutching a mug like it was her last source of warmth. "Morning?" Nora said simply. Amanda stared. "That's it? That's all you're going to say?" Nora opened a cabinet, reached for her favorite teacup, and rinsed it slowly under warm water. Amanda's voice was brittle. "You know something. About this lien. This foreclosure crap. It's you, isn't it? You're behind it." Nora looked at her evenly, drying the cup with a hand towel. "I thought you said I was just the maid." Mark entered from the living room, looking like he hadn't slept either. He spoke quietly. "We need to figure this out. There's gotta be some misunderstanding." Nora set the cup down gently. "Misunderstanding? Number, what's happening is perfectly clear." Amanda's mouth opened, then closed. She pointed a shaky finger. "You've been playing us, this whole time, smiling, folding laundry, and, what? Secretly planning to steal our house? Nora tilted her head. Our house? That's curious phrasing. Amanda's voice rose. Don't play coy. This is vindictive. Mark tried to interject. Amanda, maybe we should just… No, she doesn't get to flip the table on us like this. Nora walked past them, heading upstairs. Where are you going? Amanda barked. Nora didn't look back. To water the plants. My roses are sensitive this time of year. Later that evening, a letter arrived in Nora's name, hand-delivered by courier in a black folder. She opened it calmly, seated at the dining table while Amanda watched from the living room, arms crossed, eyes burning. Inside, legal documents, signed and sealed. Temporary control order, reassignment of property rights. Nora read the line twice, just to let it settle. Effective immediately, she was the acting property owner. Every decision, utilities, tenancy, future sales, ran through her now. She gently folded the letter and placed it in her handbag, standing slowly. Amanda stood too. What is that? Nora paused. Her voice was smooth as silk. It's the paperwork for the mop you gifted me. Amanda lunged for the envelope, but Nora was already walking upstairs. Mark sat frozen on the sofa. The camera of reality finally zoomed out for them, and they saw who'd been holding the deed all along. And in the silence that followed, Nora whispered to herself, I built this house. Now, I'll rebuild my peace. If I'm just the maid, consider this my resignation. Landlords don't scrub toilets. Nora didn't wait for the right time. There never was one in a house where her presence had always been treated like a favor that wore thin. The sun streamed through the kitchen window, soft and warm against the countertops she'd cleaned more times than she could count. The faint scent of citrus from the wood polish still hung in the air. It was peaceful, but today it would become final. Mark sat at the table, stirring coffee like he was trying to avoid the conversation he knew was coming. Amanda was scrolling through her phone, her foot bouncing restlessly. Nora stood at the end of the counter, a neat stack of papers in hand. I'm not renewing, she said simply. Mark blinked up. Not renewing what? The informal arrangement, Nora replied. You've had free lodging under my roof for years. It ends now. Amanda scoffed without looking up. Is this some kind of performance? No, Nora said, calm and clipped. It's a formal notice. You have 30 days to vacate or sign the new rental contract. That got Amanda's attention. She put the phone down, sat up straighter. You can't be serious. Nora placed the rental agreement on the table between them. A legal header stamped across the top. The paper was pristine. Her handwriting was not. I'm very serious. Mark leaned forward, his voice hushed. Mom, come on. You don't need to do this. We're family. Nora's smile was soft, but it didn't reach her eyes. Family doesn't reduce someone to a cleaning chore and call it love. Amanda's face darkened. I want to speak to someone above you. Nora chuckled lightly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a card. Clean, embossed, heavy stock. By all means, she said, handing it across. Here's my attorney. She'll be handling all inquiries moving forward. Amanda took the card like it was a slap. You don't get to just flip the roles, she snapped. You live here. No, Nora replied. I own here. You live here by my grace, and that grace has expired. Mark tried again, gentler this time. Look, I know Amanda's made some comments and maybe things got out of hand. Out of hand? Nora interrupted, voice still steady. You let your wife insult me for years under this roof. You let her gift me a mop for my birthday in my own kitchen. Amanda flinched. And not once did you say, Mom deserves better. Not once. The silence that followed was thick. Nora continued, her voice low but resonant. So here's the deal. 30 days. You can sign the lease, pay market rent, or pack up. Amanda's jaw was tight, but her voice cracked when she snapped, You'll regret this, you old witch. Nora stared at her. Then, slowly, she smiled. Maybe, but I won't regret standing up. She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing on the tile like a judge's gavel at the end of a trial. Amanda's voice followed her, high and shaking. You'll be alone, Nora. No one's going to remember you fondly after this." Nora didn't stop, didn't reply, but she thought of the lawyer's email from the night before. "Temporary control confirmed. You may issue any legal notices moving forward as sole property rep." No more silence, no more corners. She wasn't the maid anymore, she was the landlord. Behind her, Amanda knocked the rental contract off the table, papers scattering like broken pride. She screamed, voice raw and cracking, "You'll regret this, you old witch!" Nora paused at the stairs, turned her head slightly. "No, Amanda. You will." They sat across from me, pretending we were still a family. I wasn't pretending anymore. The table was set with unnerving precision. Crystal glasses, cloth napkins, polished silver. Too polished, too rehearsed. Even the roast chicken in the center looked like it was trying too hard. Nora took her seat slowly, letting the chair creak beneath her. She noticed Mark had poured her water, not wine. Amanda had made her usual garlic bread, the one Nora was supposedly too old to chew, just weeks ago. The air smelled of basil and something else, anxiety masked in butter. Across from her, Amanda flashed a sugary smile. "We thought it'd be nice, to reset things." Mark nodded beside her. "Yeah, just a quiet dinner, talk things out. Like family." Like family. Nora folded her napkin across her lap, her movements careful, composed. "That's thoughtful," she said softly, though her voice carried an edge beneath the politeness. She could hear it. So could Amanda, whose fingers twitched around the stem of her wineglass. Amanda launched into light chatter, her tone higher than usual, false cheer oozing from every syllable. "I even used the old recipe you used to love, from that torn-up cookbook you used to keep by the window?" Nora nodded. "The one you said smelled like mildew and threw out last winter." A sharp pause. Mark coughed into his napkin. Amanda's smile faltered, then recovered. I didn't mean it like that." "Of course not," Nora said, spooning vegetables onto her plate. The clink of forks filled the silence that followed, as everyone pretended to eat. But Nora didn't come for the food. She came for the truth. Halfway through the meal, Mark reached for his glass, clearing his throat. "So, about this lease thing," he began. Nora held up a hand gently. "Let me." She placed her fork down, folded her napkin again, sat up straighter. "I wanted to wait until the right moment," she said, locking eyes with Amanda. This seemed appropriate. Amanda smiled stiffly. "You're not evicting us, right?" Nora smiled back, but her smile was real and razor-sharp. "I am." Mark's fork hit the plate with a clatter. Amanda blinked. "Excuse me?" "I'm filing formal eviction this week," Nora said. "You'll get paperwork by Tuesday." Amanda's face twisted. "You're not serious." "I'm very serious, and legally covered. You've received prior notice. You've ignored all options I offered." "But this is your family," Mark muttered, his voice small. "No," Nora said. "Family doesn't let you scrub floors and call it love. Family doesn't gift you a mop and expect a thank you. Family doesn't call you invisible and mean it." Amanda stood, her face red. "You bitter—" Before the sentence finished, she picked up her wineglass and flung it. The deep red arced across the table, splashing across Nora's ivory blouse, staining it like blood. Mark shouted, "Amanda!" Nora didn't flinch, didn't wipe it. She simply rose from her seat, slow as ever. "And that," she said softly, "is your exit cue." Amanda stormed out, heels thudding down the hallway. Mark sat in stunned silence, head in his hands. Nora turned to the roast chicken. She cut a small slice, placed it on her plate, and ate it with measured calm. "Well," she murmured to herself, "at least the garlic bread's edible." Later that night, in the quiet glow of her study lamp, Nora sipped chamomile tea, her stained blouse already soaking in a bowl of lemon water. Her phone buzzed. Text from Elaine, next-door neighbor. "Hey, thought you should know. Amanda was loading boxes into her SUV around midnight. Alone. Looked frantic. Something's up." Nora stared at the screen for a long moment, then smiled. As the steam curled from her mug and shadows danced on the walls, Nora replied, "Let her pack. The locks change next week." They left like thieves. I watched like royalty. The scrape of furniture on tile echoed through the stillness of midnight. From her window, wrapped in a soft wool shawl and cradling a cup of lukewarm tea, Nora watched shadows shift behind the porch lights. Amanda's silhouette darted back and forth like a panicked mouse, her high ponytail swishing with every frantic movement. Mark, slower and heavier, carried a mirror awkwardly down the front steps, nearly dropping it as he tried not to make noise. They hadn't even parked the SUV in the driveway, choosing instead to load it from the side alley. Subtle, but not subtle enough. Nora didn't blink. She simply reached over to the side table, picked up her phone, and hit record. Click. The red circle blinked to life, capturing every moment. Amanda whispered harshly, her voice carrying just enough through the open front door. "We'll get the armoire, the TV, and maybe that antique dresser upstairs. If we time it right, she won't even notice till morning." "She?" Nora muttered aloud, eyebrow raised. "Still talking like I'm not here?" She zoomed in slowly as Amanda tripped over a garden hose and cursed under her breath, rubbing her ankle. Mark was visibly sweating, muttering complaints about how this is too much for one night and we should have just waited for the damn paperwork. From the backseat of the SUV, Nora could see a pile of boxes. Labeled ones, bedroom, living, valuables. Amanda had been planning this longer than she let on, but Nora had planned better. She uploaded the footage to a secure drive and emailed it directly to her lawyer with a short message. Subject: unauthorized removal, 1:04 a.m. timestamp attached body. Proceed with full property lockdown. Let them make the next move. By the time Mark and Amanda returned inside, probably to snatch a few more essentials before morning, Nora had already placed a call. "Marvin," she said, her voice calm but precise. "Activate the emergency clause. Full asset freeze. Yes, I have visual proof." Click. Call ended. At 6:15 a.m., just as the sun began to warm the dew across the lawn, a black town car pulled up to the curb. Out stepped a sharply dressed man in navy and gold, briefcase in hand, expression unreadable. He rang the bell. Nora answered in slippers. "Is he still asleep?" the man asked. She nodded once. "Both of them. Kitchen's to the right. Help yourself to coffee after." The man gave her a knowing glance, then stepped inside. A minute later, as Mark descended the staircase, barefoot, blinking sleep from his eyes, he paused at the sight of the stranger in the living room. Who are you?" The man didn't flinch. "Process server. Here on behalf of Nora Whitman." Amanda appeared behind him, mouth parted mid-yawn, and froze at the sight of the envelope the man held out. "What the hell is this?" she snapped, snatching it from his hand. "Legal notice of breach. You violated the temporary occupancy agreement. Your right to reside here is terminated, effective immediately. You may contest it in court, of course, but the video evidence is damning." Mark opened his mouth, closed it. Amanda's hands shook as she tore into the envelope, eyes racing across the print. "This is ridiculous," she hissed. "You can't just kick us out like—" "You tried to rob me," Nora said from the hallway, her voice quiet and sharp as a blade. "And you did it with the grace of raccoons in a jewelry store." Amanda turned. "You think this makes you powerful? You'll be alone." "I was already alone," Nora said, eyes steady. "You just made sure I knew it." As Amanda opened her mouth to argue again, a second knock hit the door. Mark answered this time. Another man stood there. This one wore a suit marked with the county seal. "Mark Whitman?" the man asked, pulling out a second envelope. "You've been served. They made it personal. I made it legal." The envelope landed on the kitchen table like a gavel. Nora didn't say a word. She just slid it across the polished wood surface, watching Amanda eye it like it might explode. The morning light slanted through the blinds, striping the room in harsh contrast. Fitting, really. This house had long stopped being warm. "What is this?" Amanda's voice cracked slightly, though her attempt at confidence wrapped it in a sneer. "Formal eviction notice," Nora replied, sipping her tea. 5 business days, no extensions." Amanda's laugh was brittle. "You're seriously going to put your own son on the street? I'm offering a clean exit. That's more than you gave me when you boxed up my things without asking. She set the cup down with a soft clink. I kept the receipt. You don't get to pretend it didn't happen. Across the table, Mark sat stiffly, fingers laced, eyes pinned to a single dark ring on the table where his coffee mug used to sit. He didn't speak. Amanda's jaw tightened. You know I have texts from you, old ones, from when you vented about how trapped you felt. You really want me leaking those? I wiped everything a month ago, Nora said coolly. New phone, new carrier, and the old backups? Gone. But you're welcome to fabricate something if you like. Just remember, perjury's still a crime. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was surgical. Nora rose, collected her teacup, and walked it to the sink without rushing. Her bones didn't creak the way Amanda always joked. They held her steady, strong. I already spoke to my bank, she said as she rinsed the cup. The house will be listed the moment you're out. Until then, the locks remain unchanged. Unless, of course, I'm advised otherwise. You're really going to sell it? Mark finally spoke, his voice hoarse. After everything this house meant to Dad? That stopped her. She turned halfway, the running faucet gurgling behind her. You mean the man you never ask about anymore? The man who left us this home, not to be a throne for your wife's ego, but as a legacy. Mark looked away. Amanda scoffed. Oh, please. You think people will side with you? An old woman evicting her grandchild's parents? I'm not looking for sides, Nora said quietly. This isn't personal anymore. It's just business. By afternoon, she was at her desk, reviewing photos of the property for upcoming listings. Her lawyer had already begun forwarding interested buyers. The number of inquiries made her smile, quietly, but genuinely. She clicked open a spreadsheet highlighting key updates the home would need to boost resale value. Kitchen, landscaping, bathroom fixtures. One tab over, her bank account shimmered with enough zeros to ensure she never had to check another grocery price tag again. A soft buzz from her phone interrupted the moment. Amanda is live on Facebook. Nora hesitated, then clicked. The stream opened to Amanda's red-rimmed eyes, her voice shaky as she looked into the camera, tissue in hand. She's kicking us out, Amanda sniffled. No warning, no compassion, just cold, calculated cruelty. She's always been difficult. But this is monstrous. Thousands of comments poured in, most sympathetic, a few skeptical. Nora stared, motionless, as Amanda painted her as a manipulative, bitter old woman on a revenge spree. Mark appeared briefly in the background, saying nothing. Amanda wiped her cheek. And now she's trying to sell the only home our child has ever known. After all we've done for her. Done to me, you mean? Nora thought. Her fingers hovered over her keyboard. But she didn't type. She didn't record. She didn't respond. That evening, her phone buzzed again, this time from her lawyer. You may want to see this, the text read. Attached was a link. She clicked. A neighbor's home camera feed, uploaded anonymously. The footage? Amanda on the porch a few weeks ago, smirking into her phone and laughing. Of course I call her the maid. That's all she does around here. Old Bat doesn't even realize she's just taking up space. It was already going viral. She cried online. I dropped proof offline. Amanda's face filled every phone screen in the zip code. Mascara streaks, choppy sobs, an embroidered throw blanket dramatically wrapped around her like a grieving widow's shawl. This has been so traumatizing, she whispered to her livestream audience of strangers. She's old, yes, but that doesn't give her the right to bully her way into our lives. The comment section exploded with emojis. Dr. Justice for Amanda trended in the local mom's Facebook group. One user wrote, "That poor woman. Imagine getting evicted by your own ML." Nora didn't reply. She didn't explain. She didn't even log in. Instead, she boiled water for her tea, her hands steady, her silence sharper than a sword. Across the street, Marlene Reynolds, 82, opinionated, and retired from 2 decades in broadcast journalism, leaned back in her chair, watching Amanda's stream with narrowed eyes. She reached for her phone and muttered, "I warned her not to poke the wrong lion." Then she opened her camera roll. The leaked video surfaced 3 hours later. No hashtags, no captions, just raw footage, doorbell cam, grainy but damning. Amanda stood on the porch in full daylight, laughing with a friend, her voice clear as glass. She still thinks she owns something. Please. We only let her stay so she could keep scrubbing. Honestly, the smell of Bengay is the only thing keeping mice away. Then the kicker. I call her the help. To her face sometimes. She doesn't get it. So, whatever. The internet flipped. Comment after comment poured in, but this time the tide turned. Wait, is this the same woman crying online? This is abuse, straight-up elder abuse. How dare she talk like that about someone who gave her a home? We need to protect Nora, not pity Amanda. Within hours, Amanda's original video was ratioed into oblivion. By morning, news outlets had picked up the story. One anchor dubbed it, "The Maid Who Owned the Mansion." Mark deleted his Facebook, then his Instagram, then his LinkedIn, though no one knew what he did for a living anyway. When a neighbor rang the bell that afternoon and said, "Tell your wife she should consider apologizing before a reporter shows up," Mark just nodded, hollow-eyed. Inside, Amanda raged, pacing barefoot on the hardwood floor like a queen exiled from her own castle. "She edited that video. That neighbor always hated me," she screamed. Mark didn't respond. He was staring at a folder Nora had sent, documents that included the house deed with her name still clearly on it, emails showing Amanda's refinance attempt, and a timeline of events that painted a damning picture. At the bottom of the stack was a sticky note. "Next time, choose silence before cruelty. Nora." Meanwhile, Nora was sitting on a park bench feeding birds. No one knew she was the woman at the center of the storm. No makeup, no camera, no statement. Until a Channel 7 van pulled up at the curb. A woman in jeans and a blazer stepped out with a microphone. "Ms. Nora Callahan?" Nora turned slowly. "Yes? We'd like to interview you. You don't have to say anything controversial. People just want to hear your side." Nora looked at the birds, then at the mic. "I'm not here for controversy," she said softly. "Just accountability." That night, the interview aired. In a soft-lit segment, Nora told the truth. Not with anger, with clarity. She explained the mop, the insults, the inheritance they never knew about, the deed, the silence. Viewers were stunned. The comments section flooded with admiration. "She's a hero. This is what dignity looks like. Elder revenge arc of the century." And then, just as the credits rolled, a new revelation surfaced. A user posted a thread. Not the first time Amanda's pulled this. She tried the same with her parents 5 years ago, left them in assisted living after borrowing their house deed. Look it up. It's public record. Attached were screenshots of court filings, an old restraining order, and a property dispute in her maiden name. Amanda had done this before, and Nora had just exposed the pattern she swore no one would find. Nora's phone vibrated again, a message from an unknown number. "I run the Silver Roots Foundation. We help victims of elder exploitation. I think your story can change lives. Can we talk?" Nora looked out her window, where her old house sat in quiet shame. She whispered to herself, "Now that sounds like something worth cleaning up. They wanted me out. Now I decide who enters." The hammer echoed like punctuation, sharp, final, and cleansing. Nora stood in the middle of the once pristine living room, now stripped to bare walls and open dreams. The beige wallpaper Amanda had chosen to match modern neutrals was gone. In its place, light sage paint warmed the walls, soft, earthy, fresh. Where the mop once stood in a closet, she placed a potted fern, lush and breathing. "Leave the scars in the floors," she told the contractor, watching the sun pour through the bay window. "Let them walk on history." He nodded. "You sure you want the top floor sectioned off like this?" "I'm sure," she said, voice firm. "It's not just for me anymore." The remodel took 6 weeks. The upstairs, once Amanda's home spa space, now held 2 beautifully designed suites, sunlight-washed rooms with private baths, cozy armchairs, and framed quotes on the walls like, "Peace is when you stop asking for permission to exist. Not all wounds leave blood, Some leave women. Each room was already claimed through Nora's new nonprofit partnership, Second Story, Living, a transitional rental program for elderly women pushed out of their homes, their marriages, or their silence. One by one, they arrived. A retired schoolteacher named Bernice, carrying only a suitcase and a folder of unpaid medical bills. A seamstress named May, whose daughter told her, "Your time here is up." And a third on the wait list, already calling daily to see when a space would open. Nora made coffee for them every morning. They offered to help. She always declined. "You've done enough," she said gently. "Now you rest somewhere that sees you." In the evenings, she hosted Sunday suppers. Long tables in the backyard, strung lights across the fence, mismatched china and fresh herbs in recycled glass jars. Local women came, some young, some old, all tired of biting their tongues. They shared stories over lemon tarts and stories even sharper. Nora listened more than she spoke, but when she did, it was with stillness, measured words, power earned in silence. Then came the email. From amandasmith488@gmail.com. Subject, application inquiry, room rental. The name was fake, the details too vague. But the writing? Too familiar. Nora opened the email slowly. The phrasing reeked of desperation laced with entitlement. "My circumstances have changed dramatically. I'm just looking for a safe, affordable space to heal and start fresh." It was signed, Best A. Carter. Nora didn't respond. She simply clicked decline. No explanation. No fuss. She did, however, post a new quote above the stairwell that night. "Some doors don't close with anger. They close with grace," and a deadbolt. 3 days later, a white envelope appeared in her mailbox. No return address. The handwriting, tight, slanted, anxious. She opened it in the kitchen, steam rising from her tea like breath she didn't want to hold. The letter was handwritten. "Nora, I know I've made unforgivable mistakes. I don't expect sympathy. I only hope you'll believe I've changed. I lost everything, but I deserved it. What I said, what I did, none of it can be taken back. But if there's any corner of you that remembers who I was before all this, I'm begging you, please forgive me. Amanda." Nora held the paper between her fingers, staring at the tear stains soaking into the ink. She walked to the back door, stood at the threshold, and let the breeze stir the hem of her sweater. She didn't cry, she didn't smile, she just breathed. She folded the letter once, slid it back into the envelope, then dropped it into the recycling bin, and turned to greet the new woman at the gate, suitcase in hand, eyes wide, hope flickering. "Welcome home," Nora said. "They gave me a mop. I gave them memories they'll never scrub away." The mop didn't even have a ribbon on it, just the same faded blue handle, slightly scuffed from use, the one Amanda had wrapped like it was a joke and handed to Nora on her 66th birthday. Nora held it now with gloved fingers, not in anger, not in sadness, just awareness, like holding a page of a chapter she'd already finished, knowing it no longer held any power. She stepped into the women's shelter with that mop under one arm and a small card tucked in the bristles. The volunteer at the front desk, a girl no older than 22, blinked up at her. "Ma'am, can I help you?" Nora smiled. "This is for the cleaning closet," she said softly. "It was a gift, and now it's part of a better home." She left it there, in their care, something scrubbed of history, now handed to healing. Back home, Nora sat on her back patio under a wide umbrella, a teacup cradled between her palms. The sky above was cloudless, impossibly blue, like it had been scrubbed clean overnight. Laughter trickled from the upstairs balcony. May and Bernice were arguing about which movie to stream for senior cinema night. Someone had brought scones. Someone else was trying to figure out how to use the smart TV remote. It was chaos. It was comfort. It was hers. She reached for the drawer in her side table and pulled out Amanda's letter again. It had sat there for weeks now, folded, untouched since she first read it. She didn't reread it. There was no need. Nora remembered every word, not because it pierced, but because it didn't. "I don't expect forgiveness. I lost everything. I was scared, selfish, stupid. Please, Nora, please reply. She didn't. Sometimes healing doesn't come with conversation. Sometimes peace is the absence of engagement. She placed the letter back in the drawer, closed it, locked it. That afternoon, she hosted another community circle. This one was smaller, just 5 women, all recently displaced by adult children who needed space or couldn't afford care anymore. They sat in a circle of folding chairs in the garden, shaded by sunflowers and eucalyptus. Each woman held a cup of hibiscus tea and a folded piece of paper labeled, "One Thing I Got Back." Nora didn't share hers out loud, but she knew what it would say. Me. That evening, she stood in the front room of the house, alone for just a moment. The golden light of dusk spilled across the hardwood floors she'd once cleaned, while her laughter was mocked and her presence dismissed. She traced her fingertips along the windowsill. The scent of fresh linen drifted in from the upstairs rooms. There were no photos of Amanda here, no trace of Mark's ghosted apologies, just plants, soft music, and a single quote stenciled on the wall. "You are not who they say you are. You are who you rebuild." Nora moved to the back patio again, tea in hand. A breeze rustled through the trees. The wind chimes sang a soft, accidental lullaby. A cat, not hers, just a neighborhood stray, curled at her feet, claiming peace without permission. She looked out into the garden, where laughter still lingered in the air like incense. She breathed in, slowly, and exhaled everything she had once held in. I cleaned their mess. Now I live spotless.